became the sky. After stories learn to die, there's a lock with no design, where no hand could draw a line. Not a door and not a wall, just a promise to us all. In the keyhole, in the void, where the dream that was destroyed. Feel the absence of the teeth, where the air and where the sheath. Holding nothing, feel it bite, where the ending of the where the closing felt so near. You're the dream that haunts my sleep. Can you hear the sky at night? We're colliding with the light. Hold me close, don't say goodbye. Where the reason comets fly. These are echoes in the night sky, calling out your name as planets fly by. These are echoes in the night sky. Every beam of light says you and I. In the silence, in the spark, you're the fire in my dark. These are echoes in the night sky, and I'm never coming down. No horizon, no divide. You're the gravity I ride. In the cosmos, in the blue, every atom pulls to you. Northern lights across my skin. Every color you begin. Paint the darkness with your grace. Time dissolves inside your face. Galaxies begin to turn in the lessons that we learn. In the orbit, in the flame, I still whisper out your name. Can you hear the sky ignite? We become the satellite. Hold me close, don't say goodbye. Where the reason stars don't die. These are echoes in the night sky, calling out your name as planets fly by. These are echoes in the night sky. Every beam of light says you and I. In the silence, in the spark, you're the fire in my dark. These are echoes in the night sky, and I'm never coming down. If the universe runs cold, if the stories stay untold, I will find you in the sound of the starlight coming down. These are echoes, 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 echoes in the night sky. In the night sky. These are echoes, you and I. And I'm never coming down. After reader finds the page, after memory leaves the cage, there's a twist we never planned, where the book begins to stand. Not the ink and not the hand, just a tale that understands. In the plot we thought was ours, where the dust between the stars. Watch the sentences turn eyes, where the question, where the why. Hold the chapter, feel it breathe, where the ones you won't believe. This is the story that reads us. Until the myth becomes a must. Became the long after silence stayed unsung. There's an echo in the none where the sound was never done. Not a voice and not a scream, just the ghost inside the dream. In the listening, in the vast, where the future and the past feel the nothing call its name. Where the wild and where the tame hold the echo, hold it lost. Where the fire and the frost. This is the echo that was never made. When every answer went unafraid. This is the echo that was never made. And every question was unplayed. In the silence, in the blade, you're the sun and you're the shade. This is the echo that was never made. Of the debt we never paid. No more breath and no more word. We're the song that's never heard. In the echo, in the lack, we're the forward and the back. When the fiction begs the sound, when the myth can't hear the ground. In the cavern of the void, where the weapon undeployed. Every silence that we keep is the mountain and the deep. In the yearning, in the trade, you're the light and you're the shade. Feel the nothing call its name. Where the wound and where the flame hold the echo, hold it lost. Where the gain and where the cost. This is the echo that was never made. When every answer went unafraid. This is the echo that was never made. And every question was unplayed. In the silence, in the blade, you're the sun and you're the shade. This is the echo that silence is the gate. This is the echo. That was never made. Of the debt we never paid. There's nothing left to name, where the burning lost its claim. Not a void and not a womb, just the end of every room. In the hushing, in the vast, where the future and the past feel the screaming, lose its sound. Where the broken and the bound hold the silence, hold it near. Where the question and the fear. This is the silence after the scream. place where we belong. In the middle, in the strain, where the pleasure and the pain. Feel the balance break its back, where the white and where the black. Hold the middle, hold it tight, where the shadow and the light. This is the weight of the gray, when every answer lost its way. This is the weight of the gray, and every yes became the maybe. In the holding, in the fray, you're the night and you're the day. This is the weight of the gray, of the price we have to pay. No more truce and no more war, where the ceiling and the floor and the gray inside the scene, where the waking and the dream. When the fiction fears the choice, when the myth becomes the noise, in the center of the scale, where the anchor and the sail. Every balance that we keep is the mountain and the deep. In the weighing, in the sway, you're the dawn and you're the gray. Feel the balance break its back, where the empty and the stack. Hold the middle, hold it tight, where the wrong and where the right. This is the weight of the gray, when every answer lost its way. This is the weight of the gray, and every yes became the maybe. In the holding, in the fray, you're the night and you're the day. This is the weight of the gray, of the price we have to pay. If the gray should end the fight, if the middle steals the light, let them know we chose the cost, where the balance is the law. This is the weight of the gray, of the price we have to pay. In this world we build from ash, time moves slow, then comes in flash. Every step I take's a flight, every shadow shines with light. Oceans hang above the trees, whisper names upon the breeze. In the upside, in the down, you're the only solid ground. Watch the rules begin to bend, where the start and where the end. Hold me close so I don't drift, in this place where the first gift. 'Cause the gravity feels different here. When I'm with you, there's nothing to fear. Yeah, the gravity After power stood alone, there's a gavel in the void where the chaos is destroyed. Not a rule and not a chain, just the order from the pain. In the writing, in the code, where the burden and the load. Feel the universe obey, where the night and where the day. Hold the verdict, hold it true, where the old law and the new. This is the first law of one, when every question was outdone. This is the first law of one, and everyone became the one. In the ruling, in the sun, you're the shadow and the gun. This is the first law of one, of the kingdom yet begun. Gun, 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 no more silence, no more wait. Where the lock upon the gate, in the law inside the bone, where the many and the one. When the fiction signs its name, when the myth becomes the frame, in the scripture of the stars, where the healing of the scars. Every edict that we make is the world we cannot break. In the binding, in the done, you're the zero and the one. Feel the universe obey, where the order and the fray. Hold the verdict, hold it true, where the me and where the you. This is the first law of one, when every question was outdone. This is the first law of one, and everyone became the one. In the ruling, in the sun, you're the shadow and the gun. This is the first law of one, of the kingdom yet begun. Dun, 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 dun. If the law should end the doubt, if the one should count the out, let them know we wrote the rule, where the sovereign is the school. This is the first law of one, of the kingdom yet begun. After wind had carried cinders, after ash became the finders, there's a catching in the blue, where the burning learned what's true. Not a sun and not a star, just the wounds we threw too far. In the rising, in the vast, where the future and the past feel the burning touch the night. first light, after stars gave up their height, there's a breaking in the dust, where the burning learn to trust. Not a seed and not a tree, just the memory of free. In the cracking in the vast, where the future and the past feel the fall and learn to rise, where the ending and the skies hold the ground, hold it deep, where the waking and the sleep. This is the ground that learned to bloom when every scar became the room. This is the ground that learned to bloom and every ending cleared the gloom. In the growing, in the tomb, you're the question and the womb. This is the ground that learned to bloom, of the world that fled the doom. The doom. Made of memory, after blooms became the inventory, inside the core, where the endless and the war. When the fiction fuels the air, when the myth becomes the prayer, in the burning of the bloom, where the question and the room, every scent we set adrift is the history we can shift. In the burning, in the sky, you're the silence and the light. Feel the memory touch the blue, where the ashes and the new. Hold the sand, hold it high, where the ending and the try. This is the scent that burns the sky, when every petal learned to fly. This is the scent that burns the sky, and every cycle said goodbye. In the rising, in the cry, you're the witness and the why. This is the scent that burns the sky of the world that cannot lie. If the scent should end the stars,